Summer is here, which means we all want to look and feel our best. A GLP-1 may be right for you. Visit orderlymeds.com to learn more about which GLP-1 you could be eligible for. Getting started is fast, easy, and happens virtually through telemedicine from licensed professionals. Check it out for yourself. Go to orderlymeds.com/podcast. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. Taking care of yourself feels great. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
Saving the SAVE Act and other political issues. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Common sense voter ID is supported by 83% of all Americans. That was a Facebook post 2 weeks ago from U.S. Representative Young Kim's office. And in it, the stats go like this. 80% of all Americans support common sense voter ID, 95% of Republicans, and 71% of Democrats. And yet the SAVE Act languishes on Capitol Hill, despite the fact that we have a Republican president who has been pushing for voter integrity measures since I remember President Trump before he was President Trump way back in 2015 on the campaign trail talking about the need to secure elections, and then in his first term, in the early days of his first term, talking about it. And not only did Democrats shut him down, but guess who else told him to stop talking about it? Republicans in his own party. You remember all that? I do. Before I get into more of this, I want to quickly mention, though, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at Real Life Network. That is the faith-based news outreach of Pastor Jack Hibbs's church in California. The church is Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills Church. You can also get Bold and Blunt at washingtontimes.com, where if you scroll to the bottom of the page, click on the newsletter section and find Best of Cheryl Chumley, the newsletter. You will get, if you enter your email address, you will get delivered right to your email box 3 times a week. My newsletter contains all my commentaries that I write, my Bold and Blunt audio versions, and lately I've been doing a video version as well, delivered right to your email box. You won't have to search for it. And you can also get, of course, Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are available. I want to read you this interesting bullet point data, bit of data from the Heritage Foundation that maintains a running election fraud case count on its website. But in a 434-page document that they posted on their website for all to see, it's called a sampling of election fraud cases from across the country. They go through every state by state. They go through every single state and talk about the election fraud cases that have been brought to trial, resulting in criminal convictions, and they talk about the severity of the fraud. So if you ever have any doubt that fraud occurs during elections, if you think it's a talking point of the far-right MAGA movement, and you think Democrats are correct on the issue in saying the SAVE Act will disenfranchise voters and keep women and minorities from voting, I guess their logic is that women and minorities are too stupid to get IDs. That we don't know how to find our way to a DMV to get an ID. I don't know what their logic is on that. But if whatever their logic is, if you fall on the side of Democrats and think we don't need any type of voter integrity laws, then take a look at this report. Click on your state, scroll over other states and see all the proven cases of voter fraud that have occurred. And Heritage Foundation has found 1,176 proven instances of voter fraud. The United States Heritage Foundation writes, has a long and unfortunate history of election fraud. The Heritage Foundation is providing a list of election fraud cases from across the country, broken down by state, where individuals were either convicted of voter fraud or where a judge overturned the results of an election. This is not an exhaustive list, but simply a sampling that demonstrates the many different ways in which fraud is committed. Preventing, deterring, and prosecuting such fraud is essential to prosecuting the integrity of our voting process, Heritage Foundation writes. And as Heritage says, and I thought this was a full accounting, but Heritage reports this is not an exhaustive list, but simply a sampling. So 1,176 proven instances of voter fraud. Of that, 1,018 have resulted in criminal convictions. 48 have resulted in civil penalties, 81 diversion programs, 14 judicial findings, and 15 official findings. And not only is this 434-page report that was presented to Congress available in a PDF form, so you can print it out and take it on vacation with you for some fun and lively reading, but you can also go to their website, and they have this easily researchable map. You can just scroll over your state and explore the data. So just briefly, I'm on the page now. It's actually called the election fraud map, and the way it works, Heritage says, is it displays a sampling once again, not an exhaustive list, but a sampling of proven instances of election fraud. Every case ended in a finding that the individual engaged in wrongdoing in an election, hoping to affect its outcome, or that the results were sufficiently in question to be overturned. While not comprehensive, this map demonstrates vulnerabilities in the election process and the ways in which fraud is committed. So all you do, you take your cursor and you fly it over the map. Washington, 15 cases. Oregon, 18 cases. California, 71 cases. All right, well, let's dig deeper in California. You click on the California link, and 71 results come up. And by results, Heritage means the actual names of the person involved. Top on the list, 2025, criminal conviction, Michelle Marie Morrow. And then it has a link where you can read what happened. What did she do? Oh, false registration. Michelle Marie Morrow was charged by St. Louis Obispo County with 4 felonies of voter registration fraud, filing a false declaration of candidacy, fraudulent voting, and perjury by declaration. Morrow ran as a write-in candidate for the District 3 seat of the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors, even though Morrow lived in District 4. She pleaded no contest to filing false nomination papers and fraudulent voting in exchange for dismissal of the 2 remaining charges. She was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 2 years probation. And then below, it has a couple source links. So you can click on that and you can find out, well, where does Heritage get this information? Click on it and it takes you right to the County of St. Louis Obispo's page, the district attorney's page, where the information comes right from law enforcement and court documents. So there you have it. I mean, it doesn't get any more data-driven, fact-driven, provable than that, right? You take it right from the court information. And so, go on now to number 2 on the list in California. William Eschenbach, Eschenbach, 2024, California, criminal conviction. And then you click on William. What did he do? Well, the fraud type was duplicate voting, fraudulent use of absentee ballots. And then you can read all about William. And then you can click on the links below there and go right to the court case and find out exactly why William did what he did, and how he was convicted for it. And then back to the map. Idaho, 13 cases. New Mexico, 8 cases. Ohio, where did Ohio go? It goes so quickly. Ohio, 63 cases. Illinois, 117 cases. Maine, 2 cases. New York, 28. Virginia, 36. North Carolina, 123. Massachusetts, 4. Texas, let me see. Texas, 113. Mississippi, 45. Georgia, 36. I'm not going to go through all the states, but you get the picture. Very easy to search, very easy to look up, very easy to prove that fraud in fact does exist in elections. And, you know, if you're one of those people out there that think, oh, it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen often enough that we need to have laws and crackdowns on how elections are run, well, think again, because you don't have to have 51% of something to upset the whole system, right? You only need to have a very small percentage of, for instance, in this case, we're talking about fraud. You only need to have a very small percentage of fraud to occur before people lose trust in the system as a whole, right? That's how it works. You don't have to prove 51% of elections or 51% of ballots cast during 51% of the years of elections in America, all through America history. You don't have to have that 51% majority to show that fraud occurs, and since it's 51%, then the whole system is corrupt. You only need enough percentage, what is it, 3%, 4%, whatever the perception is in Americans' minds. It's not a 51% end game. You only need a small percentage of fraud to cause a distrust of the system at large, of the entire system. And when you look at this report, when you look at what Heritage has found and how they continue to track in real time every year, they add to this database, you have to start to realize, wow, fraud really does occur, and wow, maybe we do need some crackdowns. And then you look at the states that refuse to provide data when requested about, say, dead people on their voter rolls, and you see that it's Democrat-run states or Democrat-run jurisdictions, and then you start to think to yourself, why are Democrats so insistent on keeping this information hidden from the public? And that's when you start to question the system at large. So, Save the SAVE Act, right? We'll see what happens. Senator Lindsey Graham, his untimely, sudden, tragic, in some people's minds, very sad death, has put the SAVE Act in question, but maybe not as much as we all think, right? It's not as if South Carolina was a borderline state where the appointment of the governor is going to shake the political makeup of the Senate, or the special election that will be held and determine Lindsey Graham's seat for the next 6 years is going to be a close call. President Trump won that state by vast majorities, and by all accounts, Senator Graham was on a fast-track, easy win to another 6-year term. He faced re-election contest again in November. So it's not as if the political makeup of the Senate is going to be shaken at its core because of his untimely death. But why can't we get the SAVE Act passed? What's going on there? And here to discuss with me the SAVE Act, Lindsey Graham, Iran, other things going on politically, the midterms, is a woman who is at the core of Republican politics, Martha Jenkins, president of National Federation of Republican Women. I want to thank you so much for being on Bold and Blonde. It is great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you, as president of National Federation of Republican Women, you have some interesting perspectives, I'm sure, on what's going on in the world of politics. Let's start with the sudden death of Senator Lindsey Graham. What did you make of that, and where do you see this headed politically for the future of the Senate?
Well, it certainly was a shock. It's a tragedy, of course, for someone. I mean, these days we think 71 is young.
Yes.
So it's very sad for his family and for his sister, and of course for his staff and his constituents. I understand that his staff was he was very long term with his staff, that there wasn't a lot of turnover, and that his staff was like family too. So it's just really sad. I think in the long term, there's not going to be a lot of difference with his death, with the political makeup of the Senate, simply because the South Carolina governor can quickly announce a replacement to fill his seat until the end of the term. And South Carolina went for Trump, I think, by 18 points. So it's very, very unlikely that the November election would elect anything other than another Republican. So I don't see that the balance making a lot of difference. Of course, Senator Graham had a lot of relationships built up and a lot of experience, and he was able to work with people and get things done that other senators might not be able to do. So we'll have to see who kind of steps in that void to be the person to help get deals done.
Yeah, you're right. South Carolina did vote for Trump all three times by double digits, so that the seat does seem safe for Republicans. But he was sort of a powerhouse. You know, he chaired the budget committee, and he had great relations with Israel. Do you think it will be hard to find somebody who checks all the boxes? For instance, he really was for the SAVE Act as well.
Yes. Well, I think that remains to be seen. I believe that most of the senators on the Republican side are for the SAVE Act. There wasn't the willingness to do away with the filibuster, or even the so-called talking filibuster, just because there's risk associated with that too for the majority party. So hopefully, obviously his replacement will most likely be for the SAVE Act too. Let's just hope reason will prevail and we'll get it done. It's an 80-20 issue, if not more. I mean, most Americans do not want anyone but citizens voting in our elections, and most Americans think that it's not too much to ask to prove you are who you are by showing an ID. And I think we will get it passed, whether it's this term or next, but I certainly hope it's, this term.
Well, especially since the midterms are in play. And, there are, depending on who you listen to, Trump, with Iran especially, is either doing damage for the Republicans' chances on the midterms, or it doesn't matter at all. And Democrats are sort of hanging themselves with their growing embrace of socialism. How do you see the midterms shaping up?
Well, I think the overall arching issue, by the time that people start voting in October and November, depending on when early voting is in their state, the overarching issue will be, and always has been, their pocketbooks.
Mm-hmm.
So if the economy is going well and unemployment is low and people feel optimistic, then I'm not that worried. I feel like that Republicans have better candidates. The socialist bent and the socialist wing in the Democrat Party is obviously un-American. Communism and socialism do not equate with our constitutional values and with the Constitution itself. And I just feel like that will hurt the Democrats in some states, in districts where they have a majority and they've nominated in their primaries a socialist candidate. They'll of course end up in Congress, short of them dropping out before the November election, and we don't see that happening. But I think overall that will hurt them, because Republicans should tie every Democrat to those candidates if they haven't come out and denounced them. For instance, in my home state of North Carolina, I want to see if Roy Cooper will denounce, not just keep at arm's length, but denounce those Democrat socialist candidates, because that will make a big difference in North Carolina. It really, really would. If North Carolinians think that he's okay with democratic socialism, he will drop like a rock.
You know, that's a good point, to have Republicans sort of make that a litmus test when they go against Democrats, both in whatever the state, whether it's Democrat-controlled or Republican-controlled state. It seems like a good litmus test. One of the challenges, though, is with the open borders that we saw under Joe Biden, many of the people that were allowed in here that Democrats want to hurry up and register to vote are those coming from countries where they're used to having government provide cradle to grave.
Well, some of them were also coming from countries that were socialists, and they were untenable to live in. So, but at the same time, short of illegality, those people aren't citizens yet and shouldn't be voting. If they are voting, they're more likely to be voting in blue states and red states, because the red states have done a better job of cleaning up the voter rolls and providing for election integrity.
Yes.
And it may not make a difference in the long run as far as whether a Democrat or a Republican is going to take a seat. But at the same time, it's certainly concerning, and it's also concerning that so many young people have such a distorted view of what socialism and communism really is. They don't understand that it means everybody will have the same low standard of living, except for the few people that are running the country. And the platform that they've come out with is just totally untenable, totally ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen it. They want to basically abolish the presidency. They want to abolish the U.S. Senate. They want Congress to choose Supreme Court judges and executives to run the country. And Americans don't want that. And you mentioned litmus test. To me, another litmus test would be that every Republican should ask every Democrat, do you want to expand the Supreme Court? Do you want to pack the Supreme Court for ideological reasons? Or do you want to keep the Supreme Court permanently at 9 by passing a constitutional amendment to do that, the Keep 9 Amendment? That's another litmus test that should be asked of every single Democrat running.
Let's talk a little bit about the public school systems and how it feeds into this growth of socialism, because as you listed all those platforms, first off, I was aware of them. And then second off, you and I, and probably Bold and Blunt listeners, know how lunatic that agenda sounds because we have a republic and you can't just snap your fingers and change the government overnight. But the problem is many young people who have been conditioned to embrace socialism and rebel against capitalism, they don't understand why that sounds lunatic. How big a problem do you see the school systems in fueling this socialist, communist type of agenda?
Well, it's obviously a big problem, or they wouldn't be thinking that at all. If they had been taught U.S. history and had been schooled on what the Constitution says, if they had even been asked to read the Constitution or the Federalist Papers and knew the history of the country and why the Constitution says what it says, they wouldn't have fallen for any of that to start with. So it obviously is a huge problem that our students are not being taught history and civics. It's crucial. Of course, learning to read and learning to do math, learning science, that's all obviously very important too. And we almost could say we're not sure they're teaching science anymore either, because
True.
things that are scientific facts are, now being doubted, such as gender fluidity, which is not scientific. But at any rate, yes, the educational system is a huge problem, because it starts early, even in middle school, high school, obviously, and then these kids go into colleges are just being spoon-fed all kinds of falsehoods and ideological Democrat socialist trends, and it's of course disturbing. I do like the idea of a lot of younger people now looking at the trades, because they'll get real life, real world experience pretty fast that way. And they won't have quite as much stuffed into their skulls, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, skulls full of mush. because and all he meant by that was that kids don't know anything until you teach them things. And so what we want to do is teach them facts and correct ideas about what our country truly is all about, and not that we're some irredeemable country, because that's what they're being taught in these schools.
I do like that growing interest in the trades as well, not only for their sake, but for our country's sake, because it just seems it seems like it's been a lost art, right? Having people who understand how to work with their hands.
Yes, and when you have 100-degree days and your air conditioning breaks, you certainly want an HVAC person who's trained to get it working again.
That's right,
Not
you
to
do.
mention plumbing and carpentry and all of those important things.
That's right.
And,
life skills.
It takes just as much brain power to do a lot of those things as it does learning, underwater basket weaving.
It's very admirable to be able to use your hands and fix stuff. I mean, it's just,
That's right.
It really is. And, we just talked about youth and their embrace of socialism and looking at the midterms. And really, youthful vote may not matter so much, because as you penned in this really good piece in the Washington Times recently, you wrote, "Women will decide the midterms." Let's just finish up by talking about that.
Well, I think one of the issues that's kind of been underwater a little bit, maybe that's not the term I mean, but it's not getting attention, is the MAHA movement and Secretary Robert Kennedy's work on actually making our food healthier, making sure that drugs that are available have truly passed scientifically rigorous tests and are safe. And I think a lot of women also are looking at that and understanding that this administration is going into a sea change with looking at how we all look at health, and the fact that we've got a lot more to do with our health than we thought, that there's things that we can do to improve our health, and that it's not all just what the doctors say and tell us to do.
That's a really good point, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that the work of the MAHA movement hasn't been as widely reported as it should, because if anything else, what Kennedy has done is he shed light on don't trust the government health bureaucrats, right? That's
right.
Huge.
Right, and women care about the health of their children and their families. Of course, men do too, but, women are usually the ones that are taking the kid to the doctor, making sure they eat healthy, make sure they get their vitamins, make sure they get their exercise. So I think it's really, really an important thing for Republicans to highlight is that this is an administration and this is a party that cares about your health.
Yes, the compassion of the Republican Party that the Democrats always try to claim as their own. So,
Right.
Martha
right.
Jenkins, president of National Federation of Republican Women, it's been a delight chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and we would welcome Republican women to join our organization and help us win more elections.
And what's your website?
It's nfrw.org.
Got it.
nfrw.org.
Got it. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
You have a wonderful day.
All right, you too.
nfrw.org, National Federation of Republican Women. Check it out. I want to thank you for listening. Remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you may get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are available, and at Real Life Network and at WashingtonTimes.com. Tune in next time. In the meanwhile, don't forget, stay blunt, stay bold.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.